Wavelength.
Just because we're doing our lectures online doesn't mean that we need to then retreat and make life, all about being alone.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide.
I think there's not enough knowledge around the severity of the long-term impacts that a concussion can give you, and it's not really educated enough.
You should be having.
The minimum job search requirements is definitely problematic, and it is up to a computer to decide whether you receive your payments each month.
This is Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. We are your hosts. I'm Cass, and of course I'm joined by the absolute stunning Grace.
Yeah, you are. How you doing, Cass?
I've been so good. How about you?
Oh, it's actually been really nice. The weather's been slightly less disgustingly hot. The girls are less sweaty.
Oh my god, my upper lips had a bit of a break. I'm an upper lip sweater.
One of those.
I am.
But it's been good the sun's been out because my brain can still function. But before we jump in, we do need to acknowledge that we are recording Wavelength on the land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pay respects to elders past and present.
We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. We also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations. I can feel all of Adelaide's jaws absolutely on the floor because guess what, Grace? We are back for a back-to-back episode this week.
Yeah, my God. It's weird to have another episode just only a week after the last.
Oh my God, I'm exhausted.
But that's right. We couldn't stay away from you all, and it's been a massive week of news. With Bad March, it's officially over.
That's right, Grace. But I do want to take a second to discuss a major news headline over the weekend, which is that Kate Middleton took to her social media to announce her cancer diagnosis. And this has come after weeks of speculation from all across the globe, and it's become an international meme and just talking point. People have been speculating that she has been passed, or some more lighthearted ones that she's had BBL. My personal favourite, that she was a contestant on The Masked Singer. And I will say I do love putting on my tint hat every once in a while, but it really sparked something in me, and I think it sparked something in the internet that was quite nasty and inspired a lot of conversations about how entitled we are to public figures. Should Kate feel pressured to speak out earlier, or have the public really stripped her of her right to recover and heal?
Yeah, it's been like a moral dilemma that I've been facing on my own / with my friends, because who cares?
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
But in terms of me, I'm kind of like, unless I know what it is, I've got my own life to worry about. Why speculate? And there are people who aren't forensic scientists or professionals going, no, this is what's happened. Believe me, I know what's going on. It's like, to what does she owe us when she's going through something so traumatic? Like, she should be able to keep it to herself. Parasocial relationships and what we think we're entitled to. And a lot of people, I see comments all the time being like, well, it comes with the job, being a figure. And it's like, no, it doesn't.
No.
You've made it. This, like people who are brilliant singers, and they go, well, you're owed to be a role model. No, they've got a wicked voice and they can write some songs. To what does that mean? They have to be a great model for your child?
No, absolutely. But I think it might be time to get stuck into the episode tonight. Tonight we speak to Nature Foundation about their campaigns and how you could get involved.
And yes, later on, one of our latest Wavo recruits talks through the declining birth rate, and Izzy talks you through all the good news that happened this week.
But right now, if you haven't heard about this, TikTok has gone absolutely crazy with kids buying an insane amount of products, most of them not marketed for their skin type. It's been kind of termed as Sephora kids, or someone said in our pitch meeting Sephora Baddies, which I really loved.
I'm sick of going and all of my moisturisers being all grimy and having kitty fingerprints on them.
We'll find out how social media has been influencing young children on their purchases. Emily speaks with Rebecca Short, a child psychologist.
Take it away.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Have there been any societal changes in the past 5 years which has impacted how young people grow?
Yes, I think one of the big changes that we have been exposed to across the board is the exposure to social media and marketing. We have so much more frequent, more targeted, more sophisticated marketing messages through social media coming at us than in the past. And this is, of course, designed often to make humans want to buy things. But the way that it does that is becoming so much more nuanced and more effective. And I think this is having a big influence on our environment and a big influence on our young people.
How do influencers and online content impact young people's self-confidence on how they are influenced to buy products?
Well, they promote a lot of ideas to young people about how they can fit in, how they can be liked, and some of this is not direct, it's inferred. if you have influencers, celebrities, people that young people look up to promoting certain products, promoting certain behaviours, young people will take from that ideas about, well, if I do that, that would also mean that I might be popular, I might be more likely to be included, I might be beautiful. So it can be very subtle and indirect, but young people are at an age where they are looking to create an identity for themselves, and they're moving away from using their family as a reference point for their identity and looking more to people their own age or older role models. And so their exposure to what they see on social media is much more influential because of their developmental phase.
What psychological factors contribute to the growing popularity among younger audiences of expensive or extensive skincare routines, being promoted on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, despite dermatologists deeming them unnecessary for their skin?
Yes, it is pretty concerning when we have experts who are actually giving messaging that some of these products are not helpful and maybe even damaging to young people's skin. And we're having the opposite message promoted through channels that young people are much more tuned into and much more influenced by. So again, I think the developmental phase that these young people are in, this is not new. It is normal when you are a tween or teen to be experimenting with doing things that are more grown up, to be imagining what it's going to be like to grow up, and to be looking for ways to define yourself and for people to hang out with that share that identity. So you have a peer group and a place to belong. So when young people are in this developmental phase, they are going to be so much more open to and influenced by information that is being put out there by people who they want to identify with. And they're much more likely to listen to that, unfortunately, rather than to listen to factual information that's coming from dermatologists. And part of this is also the human brain. Its reasoning capacity is not fully developed until, mid-20s onwards. So we have this dilemma of young people being exposed to this information that, as you've kind of suggested, experts are actually saying is not factual in some ways. But these young people's brains have not yet developed the reasoning capacity to be able to sit back and critically analyse that. And so therefore they're much more vulnerable to taking this information on without that reflection and more balanced analysis.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks so much for that, Emily and Rebecca. I can definitely empathise with kids these days about how it's such a slippery slope. I mean, when I was young, and I guess it was earlier days of the internet, I was obsessed with your Zoellas, those things, and I remember being in year 7 of primary school writing a Mac wish list. How old 12-year-old needs a $30 blush?
No, absolutely. I think I went through a mustache phase, if anyone remembers that, when I was in middle school. Or the EOS lip balms. I wonder if anyone, this might be a little bit of a niche reference. Yeah, from America, because they're nowhere in Australia. But it was an obsession. So I think it's something that we look at now, and from a retrospective perspective, we're how could these younger kids want to buy all these things?
Yes.
But it was exactly the same. It just looked a bit different on us.
Yeah, skincare, I think, is more prevalent now as well, especially your targeted active ingredients than maybe when we were younger. But it's so easy to point the finger and be you guys don't need it. And they don't, but they don't know that. When I was that age, I absolutely know that I would have Drunk Elephant skincare products on a wish list right now.
I do think it was a little bit more age appropriate. I had an obsession with lip balms or the mustache. It wasn't super intense acids that I was putting on my face that are not aged for people who were 9 years old.
God, not even 30. It's hard, and it'll be interesting to see how it navigates over the next little while. But yes, up next, we're talking to the Nature Foundation about their campaigns. You're listening to Wavelength. Keep it on fresh.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength, sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Just before the break, Emily spoke with a child psychologist on social media trends and their effects. If you missed it, first of all, how dare you? But the interview you can listen back on podcasts on Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you get your podcasts.
Up next, we're speaking with Nature Foundation, a conservation company who owns 500,000 hectares of protected land. They're the third biggest, largest private land conservancy in Australia and largest in South Australia.
To find out about their program Kids on Country, Jasmine speaks with Warren Milera.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
My name's Warren Milera. I'm Narungga on my father's side, which is the York Peninsula, and I'm Adimatana on my mother's side, which is the Northern Flinders Ranges. Currently employed as a youth and conservation officer with the Nature Foundation in the Kids on Country program.
Would you be able to explain what the Kids on Country program is and how does it benefit South Australians?
Pretty much a week-long camp, which involves Aboriginal students from the high schools in South Australia. They all take a bid to get in whatever spot we got throughout the year. It involves pretty much life learning based around culture-first approach. So, we've got things like, basic car maintenance, what they need to learn before they, if they get a job in the mines or as a ranger or something, they have to do, car checks before they go out. So we teach them basic, We use camera traps to put out overnight and see what's out and about, getting out in the night, and then we check the cameras the next day. And if there's stuff like, too many feral cats or feral goats or stuff like that, we report it back to the Nature Foundation. Geocaching, which, we send them on a couple of hour walk, We encourage them that whatever they're good at or whatever they like in particular activity, we encourage them to take a lead. Some of the identify potential peer leaders, get them to do that sort of stuff.
Really beneficial in terms of life skills, having that kind of teaching technique where they can appropriately use it and get ahead of it as they get older.
And we use that as a transmission of, ecological, cultural knowledge into their life skills.
Yeah, of course. How does this program help teach young Indigenous people about land conservation?
So we're up here in the Flinders Ranges. I'm traditional owner for this place out at Witchelina. This is Nakuiani country. But a lot of the kids, they all come from different backgrounds, but we encourage them to take a bit of what they learn from our country and culture and take it back to their families and start asking questions,
Building on to this, how does the Kids on Country program contribute to broader initiatives aimed at supporting Indigenous youth empowerment and cultural preservation?
Some of the kids come out and they've been exposed to anything, and once they get in, we're teaching them that they're not out in the country. They're spending, 3 days working on a remote outback station, which involves a lot of other things, including the safety, the weather, water, snakes, all that sort of stuff. And they don't, for them to learn that within pretty much 3 days of a full-on program and then take it with them, and then they go back and they speak to their parents. We've actually changed a couple of lives of past participants who have end up going into land management and really changed their minds. It's actually a junior ranger program as well, which by them attending contributes 10 points to their safe. Yeah, but when they get here, they jump off the bus and, they've got their hoodies on and they're crouched around and they're sort of looking around real sheepishly, But by Wednesday, their heads are up, their shoulders are back and broad, and they're walking tall and strutting, and they create friends within friends that they didn't know were friends, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, people that they may not have even thought to interact with before.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Would you be able to share any success stories or notable achievements from the program's implementation? What are some big movements that have been made so far?
One of our past participants left the camp here, went off and he left school and went into construction, and I don't know how long he spent in the construction, but said, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to do what you guys do. So, stuff like that there. And another young girl who done the same thing and is currently on a traineeship with us. And that's one of the things we do on the last night of the camp. We sit around and we have a campfire session, talk about, you may not know where you want to go yet in life, but can at least give you an insight into which way you might want to do, or start broadening your mind. Yeah, basically around life skills, but culture approach first all the time. And then I suppose you could see it as readying them for the workforce, or at least giving them an idea about which way they want to go.
Yeah.
What they want to do when they leave school. and also opens their eyes and broadens their minds to a bit of, a lot of culture, actually. Even though it might not be theirs, they can take it away and share and learn from it as well.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Warren and Jasmine. Such an interesting topic and such an interesting foundation as well. I think the program is really, really important.
Yeah, I think it's so fantastic to have those cultural important practices passed along to future generations. It's so important to keep that going.
Absolutely. And I think they give so many great employability skills as well through the program. I think it's just it's a really innovative, I believe. I haven't really seen anything like this in South Australia. So I'm really glad that someone is doing it and that we can promote that.
Yeah, so many hectares, so many things to do.
500,000 to be exact. If you want to learn more about Kids on Country, check out our podcast for a special interview with Katy Perry, not the singer, but who also works in the program. Just as exciting.
Wavelength.
Welcome to our podcast extended special interview. Jasmine is speaking with Katy Perry about the Kids on Country program to find out a little bit more.
Take it away, Jasmine.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Would you be able to introduce yourself and explain what you do as part of the Nature Foundation?
My name's Katy Perry. I have been working for Nature Foundation since about 2017, coordinating the Kids on Country program with Warren.
Katy, are there any upcoming events, projects or partnerships that our listeners should be aware of related to the program?
Well, it's the 2024 calendar for Kids on Country is totally full.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And we've actually got 14 camps scheduled this year. It's usually we do 6 to 8. The need is just grown so much over the last period of time. Each year we're getting more and more schools contacting us. We don't have to approach any schools anymore.
That's great.
Word of mouth is spreading. We're also doing, so we don't just do the high school program, we're also working in partnership with some traditional owners and Aboriginal corporations around doing some women's and girls programs and also men and young men programs that will come up in the future. Also, we're providing opportunity for Aboriginal community members who come from the language groups where the two properties that the camp and the program operates out of to return to country and reconnect. Families have moved away for a variety of reasons, whether it's work, employment, health, and not to mention all the past policies and stuff over the years. There's not a lot of opportunity now for families to return to country. And so we've got 2 of those, what we call them family on country camps happening as well this year.
Other than what Warren has already detailed, are there any specific activities and learning opportunities that participants engage in during the on-country camps?
Similar to what Warren said, it's a culture-first program. There's Aboriginal perspectives weaved through every activity. Under our transmission of ecological knowledge, stories and practices, so we do bird surveys and all different types of observation of plants and animals. So we'll weave language through that. We'll, talk about Warren, is fluent in Abuzz language and shares different, the names of the animals and different stories of the land, rules for living, that type of thing. So it's weaved through everything we do. So I suppose in a generic sense, we cover conservation and land management, workplace practices, living skills, but then the culture is through all of it.
Of course.
It's overseen and underpinned by that cultural aspect.
What role does mentorship and practical experiences play in shaping the participants' understanding of conservation and land management?
Well, so without people like Warren, Aboriginal key stakeholders and elders, that's where the mentorship comes in. So they really, under the senior community members, the young people learn from their elders and older people in the community. And with our backgrounds, Warren's worked as a Green Army worker and the Bounce Back program and things like that. So his conservation knowledge mixed with his cultural knowledge, there's a lot of valuable information being passed down to those young people. Without Warren and without the other Aboriginal people that we work with and partner with in this program, the program wouldn't be what it is today.
And finally, for individuals interested in getting involved or supporting the Kids on Country program, what opportunities are available for them to contribute?
can donate. If you're a organisation or an individual who feels strong and passionate about empowering Aboriginal young people, you're very welcome to donate through that website. And there's also volunteering days where we have planting days and things like that you can register your interest on the website as well, Nature Foundation website, if you want to do some day activities with Nature Foundation.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks so much for that, Jasmine and Katie. A really fantastic initiative.
Yeah, it's really great, and I'm glad that we could dive a little bit deeper on this little special interview.
Yeah, a bit more about what they do. Now back to our regular programmed episode. You're listening to Wavelength.
Wavelength.
Welcome back to Wavelength. Before the break, we spoke with Warren about the Kids on Country program. Up next, Mackenzie is speaking with Lucy Clive about student biologist university grants and her work with Australian wildlife.
Take it away.
Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
So I am one of the ecologists at Nature Foundation, and I am responsible for managing 3 of the reserves that we have in the local area, and I deal with mainly the contractors that are doing the scientific monitoring around those reserves and looking at the analysis of those data and how it pertains to protection of the threatened species that we have on those properties.
Nature Foundation offers several university grants aimed at supporting students in the study of land conservation and Australian native wildlife. Could you provide some insight into the specifics of these grants and what they involve?
We offer lots of different types of grants. We offer grants to honours students as well as PhD students, contributions toward their projects. We also offer the Roy and Marjorie Edwards Scholarship, which is for masters or PhD projects, and that is $12,000 a year for up to 3 years. So that's a pretty prestigious award. We also offer the Mike Bull Award, specifically to early career researchers, and that's an award for $3,000, as well as a personally engraved metal award with your name and the year, and that's also very prestigious. And Mike Bull is linked to Nature Foundation due to the work he did at Taliqua Nature Reserve on the pygmy blue-tongue lizard, so that's something that we manage specifically for him.
The completion of your PhD focused on the previously endangered blue-tongue lizard. Could you share some of the key findings from your research?
So I worked for 4 years on the pygmy blue-tongue lizard on a population just outside of Burra on a nature reserve called Taliqua, which is owned by Nature Foundation. And I looked at the ecological and genetic risks of translocation. So research has shown that climate change is the main threat to the species. And so relocating animals from northern populations further south is the main conservation strategy. And I looked at the effect of those movements on other resident reptiles that are in the receiving location. Obviously, if you suddenly dramatically increase the abundance of one species, it can throw out the whole ecological community. And I also looked at the effect of mixing populations, where if you move individuals from one population and mix it into another population, do they breed together? And if they do breed, are the offspring healthy? And I did that in conjunction with another student who was looking at the kind of disease risks of those movements as well.
Given your expertise and research focus, could you elaborate on the connection between your animal studies and the work of the Nature Foundation?
So, as I said, I did my PhD at Taliqua Nature Reserve, which is owned by Nature Foundation, and now I'm lucky enough to work for Nature Foundation, where I get to manage that population of pygmy blue-tongue lizards. So I'm in charge of doing the monitoring, and that's kind of monitoring of the pygmy blue-tongue population each year to work out population estimates and just make sure that our population is nice and healthy, and also monitoring the vegetation and the pygmy blue-tongue habitat that's present at Taliqua, and again making sure that that's in really good condition for our animals.
For our young listeners who are passionate about studying zoology or animal biology, what advice or message would you like to share with them regarding pursuing such fields of study?
So Nature Foundation has a volunteering program. Details are on our website, and it would be great to get more students involved in the work that we do, even just as a taster, to see whether they like that work and they want to pursue a career. So I can definitely suggest that. And we have lots of events going on, specifically at Taliqua, for example, where people can come and help do the pygmy blue-tongue survey each year, as well as, other management activities around the reserve. So yeah, I would say lots of volunteering with local organisations Foundations. Nature Foundation obviously is just one, but I think that's a really great idea, just so that you can add those skills and experiences to your CV, makes you more attractive to employers. And again, just personally, it gives you a bit of an idea of what you're interested in or not interested in, which is sometimes just as helpful. We have lots of different reserves. Some are remote, some are local, not just Tahlequah. And so if anyone is interested, just go to the Nature Foundation website and they can see all the different opportunities, or call and inquire about becoming a Nature Foundation volunteer, and they'll see there are so many different ways to get involved with a really broad range of activities with us.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thanks so much for that, Mackenzie and Lucy. Such an interesting topic, and I think what's really interesting is I didn't know that the blue-tongued lizard went extinct, and I had to look this up because when I first was pitched this story, I was like, I have no idea. That I feel like I see them all the time. I feel like I've seen one yesterday. I feel like I'll see one tomorrow. You just don't really realise, but I feel like that's such a compliment to what they do.
Yeah.
That you don't realise that these things are happening. I've just looked it up, and the species was considered extinct until 1992 and had 33 years of no sightings, no blue-tongued lizards.
It's one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing that I'm a city girl.
Yeah.
Like, it's not within my realm of understanding these things. And then you read about it and you're like, oh my God, of course. This is so ridiculous.
We're going to jump right back into some music. You have Wavelength all the way to 7 p.m. You're here on Fresh 92.7.
Wavelength.
You're on Wavelength. And Cass, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what a dink is?
Is it like an item? Is it like something that you...
It's something you identify as.
Okay. Could I say I'm a dink?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a dink.
Okay. I have no idea what this is.
Well, let's talk you through why dinks could be problematic.
Take it away, Liz.
Wavelength explains on Fresh 92.7.
Have you ever heard of a dink? Dual income, no kids? Well, it's been gathering momentum at an unprecedented rate recently. Birth rates are steadily declining around Australia, which some have coined as a baby drought. Australia's fertility rate, which measures the number of children born per woman, hit a record low in 2020 of 1.59. The latest 2022 data highlights an average of 1.63 births, an increase of a mere 0.04 per woman. To put it in perspective, looking back at history of the baby boom 60-odd years ago, 1961 saw a high of 3.55 births per woman. The impact of the cost of living crisis, coronavirus, HECS debts, and the rise of interest has discouraged couples nationwide from parenthood. The younger generation is reaching milestones such as moving out, financial independence, and marriage much later than past decades, meaning the decision to start a family is often postponed or deemed unattainable. The Choosy Cost of Children report indicated that 47% of couples found that changing economic and societal circumstances within the last 2 years have stirred up doubt. The decision to be child-free may soon become the norm. So, what does this mean for the future? The declining birth rate could have a range of effects on our future. Australia will see an ageing population that creates a significant burden on taxpayers, reduced labour force participation, and a strong demand for aged care and slow economic growth. If birth rates continue to decline, immigration may appear to be the only key to ensuring the population does not diminish. However, in last week's media release, the Albanese government has implemented changes to the Paid Parental Leave Amendment Bill to extend parental leave to 26 weeks from July 1st, 2025. Labor has also promised to pay superannuation over and above government-funded paid parental leave to support new families and gender equality. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese states these initiatives will be good for families and good for our economy. In the near future, we will hopefully see if these amendments will foster some much-needed baby fever for Australia.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
Thank you so much for that, Liz. So I can confirm I am a dink.
Yeah, I really set you up for that, making it sound so problematic.
I was like, am I hurt? Am I being, should I be insulted right now? I'm not 100% sure.
No, because I need to admit that I am an aspiring dink.
You're an aspiring dink. After the break, we cheer you up with some heaps good news. Keep it on Fresh.
Wavelength.
Feeling a little depressed? Well, we know what the doctor ordered, and it's some heaps good news.
I can't get enough of this. What's going on, Izzy?
I know there's gonna be
heaps good news on Wavelength.
The Easter long weekend is right around the corner and many South Aussies are gearing up for a day at the races. The cherished Oakbank Easter Carnival is back and so is the Clare Valley Racing Club, with each promising local wine tastings, family-friendly entertainment and of course a thrilling race held on both Easter Saturday and Monday. SA's beloved pandas, Wang Wang and Funi, look set to call Adelaide home, with Foreign Minister Penny Wong confident the zoo's star attractions are here to stay. This comes after discussions with her Chinese counterpart in Canberra, saying the pair are on a good path to continue their presence in SA. The pandas arrived in 2009 and the public's affection for them has never wavered since. A family-owned supermarket in Adelaide's north has been named as the best in the world at an awards ceremony in Las Vegas. The Saints Foodland in Salisbury Plains bet thousands of stores worldwide, being named the IGA Retailer of the Year. The store opened in 2019 and was recognised for offering the finest quality produce and its first-class service. What a way to place SA on the world stage. And this last one is a little bit of a fun one. There is a new variety of apple. And no, not the Steve Jobs kind of apple, but an Aussie apple that is delivering a bite with a little extra surprise. It's red on the inside and on the outside. The Red Love apple has been 20 years in the making, taking its name not only from its colour, but if you cut it into fours, it actually comes out in a heart shape. It's only grown in the Adelaide Hills and it's 15 to 20% higher in antioxidants than the standard apple.
Sparking the convos about Adelaide you should be having. Wavelength on Fresh 92.7.
And that brings us to the end of the show tonight. Thank you so much for listening.
Make sure you subscribe to the Wavelength podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. We have that special interview, so go have a little look-see. You can look back at our old episodes right now, and tonight's episode will be up soon.
Right after us, Deep with Easy G is coming into the studio. You're on Fresh.